Well, hello YouTube. And I honestly cannot remember if I have posted a video of my other work fan that I have. But if not, we are going to be building another one. And what this is a centrifugal blower from an old oil furnace. And this is in very good condition. The old one that I had was not in very good condition, and in fact it is now, I took it in and I use it at my where I work. But yeah, we are going to modify this and make it into a semi-portable work fan. One of the things I have already done to it is I've modified the motor mounting. The motor used to be mounted directly on the top and sat up about, this high. But I have moved it back here and flipped it around so that it now has a slightly lower profile. The next thing that we will do is mount a handle on it and wheels. And the handle I have right here is an old lawnmower handle off that Craftsman 1 lawnmower that's sitting in the yard that it's shot. But this is the handle we're going to use. And these are the wheels we are going to use. These are wheels off of one of those old style big wheel lawnmowers. It was an old 22-inch Yard King or Yard Master or something like that. Which was actually, if anybody watched my video from last summer, was the engine that I swapped over and put on my Snapper push mower was actually the engine off the same mower that these wheels came from. Yeah, but let's get started. First thing we're going to do is figure out how to mount the handle and then go from there. Now, I've already played around with just some bolts, and putting the handle on here, these little feet aren't exactly what you would say sturdy. I mean, it's good enough to hold a blower that sits in a furnace that doesn't move around, but yeah, and I think my memory card is about full. Crap. Alright, so that's taken care of. Anyway, as I was saying, the sides are a bit flimsy the way they're situated right now. I was trying to, just playing around and put the handle on through a couple of the existing holes that are here, and with a couple bolts, and what it did was it took the sides and actually spread out the feet. So what I'm going to do is, first of all, I'm just going to use a piece of all thread to attach the handle, which will securely draw the sides in together when I bolt it down. But the other thing I'm going to do is actually relocate the feet, and the other side I have already done, just by using the existing holes. And these are self-tapping screws, so I just have to unscrew it, and there's various other mounting points located around the blower housing. So I already did the other side, and if you've noticed, I also have a slightly positive tilt on it to angle the airflow up a little bit, and that works out well. And I've marked where I want to drill my hole to mount the handle. So let's take this off. Okay, and that was the original mounting spot. A couple little metal splinters where the spot welds were. But how I mounted it was using that hole there, I believe, and that hole there. Yeah. You see those line up, and that will mount it securely. And let me go now and drill the holes, and we'll put that back together and see if we can just get the handle bolted on. Alright, so that is mounted now, both of them. Now let's see how our handle fits. Let's make sure, okay, we got it going the right way, which is backwards. And if you want to know what I mean by that, this particular lawnmower has a little tab here to prevent the handle from folding in the wrong direction. And I am actually flipping that around because the lower section of the handle is going to be fixed, but I still want the top portion of the handle to fold forward. So normally on a lawnmower, your lower portion of the handle folds forward and the top part folds backwards. So we've just flipped the handle upside down. Not too difficult. Alright, so let's see here. One hand to hold the all thread, one hand to hold the camera, and one hand to hold the handle. Not gonna work. Let's see if we can do this. Are we in frame? Yeah, we're in frame. Okay, that'll work. Possibly. And of course the all thread's too long and is hitting on my glider. I can't find the hole. There we go. And I smacked the camera with the all thread, and I did it again. Sorry, guys. That's a painful sound. Where's our other nut? I lost the nut. There it is. Okay, nothing more tedious than screwing a nut down 2 feet of all thread. Anyway, the base of the handle is now mounted, and that also really stiffens up the feet on here. So I will go ahead and get my grinder and hack that off camera, and then we will figure out a way to actually secure the handle. Which, looking at it, now right now it's just resting on the motor, which I don't want. But I see we have a hole right here and right there, which look to be the ideal location. If we center that on the handle, that gives us about 1/2 inch of clearance from the motor, which should be good. And I've got a couple small bolts here, which were actually from the lawnmower. These held the Dead Man's Bale the little plastic box on, and these look like they will work perfectly. So all I have to do is spot and drill a small hole through there and bolt these on, and we'll be good to go, which I will probably also do off camera. We'll be back in a minute. So our handle is securely mounted on there now. We can see we've got those 2 screws. I might put a couple washers in there, take it apart, but I might not, as it's quite difficult trying to get in there behind the blower wheel to hold the nuts. But as you can see, we've got not quite as much clearance on the motor as I would have liked, but as this is running, the motor does get pulled forward slightly, so that should be fine. Worst comes to worst, I just I can actually slide the motor up a little bit on its mounts, but this gives plenty of clearance. We see where the bolt is here for the top upper handle to fold down over top for storage. And I just have to get a couple new hand screws and bolts, as these are seized and rusted solid. Now for the wheels. Get that cord out of the way, that was just for testing. Anyway, these are the wheels we've got, and these are going to be mounted probably around, actually, from the looks of it, it will probably be perfect to mount them right about here, right where the handle and the blower cage meet, because we want them off the ground when it's sitting, but when we tilt it back to transport it, obviously we want the wheels to hit the ground. So let me play around with this a little bit. I'll get the piece of all thread out in the two wheels, and we'll see what we've got. Alright, so I've got it mocked up now, and just using a couple shims under the wheels to raise it up a slight bit. I would have ideally liked to have this right where the handle, like, so that it would be supported upwards by the handle and laterally by the blower housing. However, I don't want to have the wheels up too far, because that would mean you'd have to tip the thing back pretty far to be able to roll it. And on the other one that I had much smaller wheels, so I had ended up mounting them. You can't see that the hub's in the way. I just mounted them directly to the bolts that I mounted the handle with. However, being the wheels were much smaller, the problem with that was that I had to flatten and hammer in the back corner of the skids on the bottom there in order to be able to tip it back. And this particular blower has some rubber feet that go on the bottom. The other one, it didn't have the feet on it when I had it, but and it's not quite level either, so when it's running it kind of vibrates a little bit and kind of rotates, so it's like an oscillating blower. But anyway, I've just got this supported on a mower blade here, and temporarily I'm just going to use these little clips and some very small self-tapping screws until I can find something better. This is all I have laying around at the moment, and for all I know that might be totally sufficient. But we'll do that. We'll get the wheels centered up side to side then, and I will cut a couple pieces of 1/2-inch copper pipe to act as spacers here, because here we have to clear the handle, and on this side we also have to clear the handle, but we also need to clear the belt and pulley, which this looks like to be about good, but I don't want to push it. So yeah, I will go ahead and attach those, mount those, and we will be back. Alright, so as you can see, we've got our spacers there, and we could have probably gone a little bit narrower on the spacing, which can always be adjusted later. I'm not too concerned about that. We've got about a 1/2-inch clearance between the belt or the pulley and the wheel, which is good. And I had actually planned on putting a belt guard on it as well, which this is off of an old snowblower, and I cut a couple relief holes in it for the shaft. But I think the wheel actually does a good enough job of guarding the belt. And on this side, as you can see, the shaft does not stick out past the wheel. So I think that might be good. I just have to figure out something a little better than these cable clips for mounting the axle or the all thread. But all in all, it seems to do pretty well. Let's flip it up and see how it looks. Yeah, that's pretty good. And when it sits down, the wheels are touching the ground, but remember those little rubber bumpers are going to be on the bottom of that too, so that'll raise it up a little bit. So it sits firmly on the ground while it's running. Now, the only thing left to do is to wire it up and try it out. Right, so I don't know why they wire things like this instead of using like a proper termination connector and a shielded cable or like a Romex or something like that. But the way this was wired is these wires were just kind of coming out here. One was like, I think they were both coming out like through there and just kind of pinched in there, and the ground was just kind of hanging out the side there. But we're actually going to wire this correctly. And I've already got the ground terminal wired in. But if you look on our wiring diagram, terminal number 1 is the ungrounded side of the line. So that would be our hot, which is our black, is going to go on here. This is terminal number 1. That's what's nice about this particular flex lead that I have. It's actually from a dehumidifier. Just it already had terminal connectors on the end, so all we've got to do is just plug in and pull the other one off, which is our neutral, and plug in. A lot easier than messing with ring terminals and screws, but just have to get this secured in the clamp and put the cover back on, and we'll be ready to try her out. Vibrates a little bit because of the handle being a little bit loose. Alright, all that's left to do is take it out front and clean it out. Handle steers nicely. Alright, let's get our garage open here and get out the air compressor, because I had wiped this side kind of clean. This side's still pretty crusty, if you can see that. That's 30 years of dust and crud in there. So, alright, and we've already had our first failure. I was dragging it around the car through the grass, and yeah, I knew these clips would be insufficient to hold the weight of the weight of this thing, but like I said, it's only temporary, as a mock-up sort of thing, I will eventually figure out something a little bit better. Either a strap that goes completely over the rod, or I will end up tack welding the rod directly to the blower housing. One or the other. But yeah, let's get her fired up and clean it out. Have to be a little bit careful on this side because of the, whoops, because the belt and the pulley, but don't know if you can see the dust and dirt coming out of there or not. And now let's get under here, see if we can get some of that crud cleaned up. Shut it down, see how we did. Yeah, that's much cleaner now. Most of the dirt is off of the wheel. Most of the dirt is out of there. I'm not concerned about the little bit that's in there. But yeah, there we go. Converting an old furnace blower into a somewhat portable work fan. Thanks for watching.